All right, this is 7th grade science. Page 400 is where we're going to start. So this would be the second part of 11.1. It got a little long there, and I had weird things happening outside, like fireworks and stuff. So I kind of stopped the video and came in. But anyway, so we were talking about cells. I want to review a little bit about what I talked about yesterday. We're talking about microscopic things, so things that can only be seen with some kind of a special lens or some kind of microscope, basically. And of course, cells are the smallest of all the living units and of all the living things. And Robert Hooke was the first one who saw those. He came up with a cell theory that says that all living things are composed of living units called cells and cell products, and only cells just come from pre-existing cells. So that's that. And then you have just like think about the factory that we talked about yesterday, thinking of your cell as a factory. And remember, you have trillions of them in your body and different kinds and that kind of thing. You might have a muscle cell, you might have cardiac muscle cell, smooth muscle cell, you might have epidermal cells, which would be skin cells. You might have bone cells, different types of bone cells. You might have blood. Obviously, you have blood cells, red blood, white blood cells, platelets. All of these things are all different kinds of cells, but they all tend to go back to this same basic idea of the cell, that it has a cell membrane, okay, and around, and it surrounds and protects it, and then it has cytoplasm that's all inside there, and that just kind of holds everything in place, and it's just the fluid medium of the cell. That's the largest portion of the cell as well. And you have organelles. They do all the work of the cell, like the machines in the factory. And then you have the nucleus, which is basically the control center of the cell. You also have the mitochondria, which are the power plants. They give the cell the power that it needs. And then in that nucleus, that you have the DNA, and that's deoxyribonucleic acid. It'd be awesome if you could spell that. That would be a great bonus, wouldn't it? And then it stores information, basically all of your genetic information, whether or not you have brown eyes, blue hair, blue eyes, brown hair, or something along those lines. And then you can look there at the bold terms on the microscope to review that. It's pretty simple. Then look on page 400, and I want to talk to you a little bit about the difference between an animal cell and human cells. They tend to go a little bit like that, but the animal cell versus the plant cell. And sorry. And so anyways, in addition to having a cell membrane, the plant cell also has a cell wall. All right, so if you look on page 400 at the bottom of the page, you can see basically how this works here. You've got the cell wall, then you have the cell membrane. And that's important in a plant because plants have cellulose in them to be able to form the cell walls, to be able to stand up nice and taut and strong. And so it has to have that. It's that cell wall and the cell membrane, the cell wall, like I said, made up of a cellulose, which is a special type of sugar molecule. Some cell walls of woody plants, like trees and things, they're also made up of lignin, which is a non-living substance, but it provides support and rigidity to, a tree or a bush or a shrub or something like that. All right. Then you also have chloroplasts in plant cells, and you have learned a little bit about that because you've learned about the chloroplasts are the organelles in the cell that perform photosynthesis. And we've gone on and on and on about photosynthesis in previous chapters, so I won't go on and on about that. But the chloroplasts have to be in the plant cell, the green plant cell, in order for it to be able to make its own food through photosynthesis there. And of course, the mitochondria would help out with that. All of them have chlorophyll in them. That's the green pigment coloring pigment in there that's needed to be able to produce the photosynthesis as well. And then one other different thing between plant cells and animal cells are the vacuoles. All right, the vacuoles. And plants produce large amounts of food and other substances, and so they have to have these large storage spaces called vacuoles. They have minerals, materials, food, that kind of thing in them. And usually the plant cell only has one or two large vacuoles. They're just nice and large vacuoles, and it stores a lot in there. The animal and human cells, they have vacuoles as well, but they don't need as much storage space, so they have several small ones inside of their cell. So if you look on page 400, the vacuole is kind of that, like, I don't know, almost see-through green thing there. It's labeled there. And then if you go back to the animal cell, you can look down at the vacuole that it has there, and it is just really small on page 396. It has a little vacuole down there towards the bottom, but it has lots of those instead of one or two. So those are the main differences. Plant cells have a cell wall, they have chloroplasts, and then they also have large one or two vacuoles instead of many vacuoles because they have to store a lot of food there. And of course, you're welcome to try some of these things that you see in the book. Some of these, I gotta stop doing that. You don't have a microscope unless you have a microscope, but you can go back in some of the book and see some of the things, the little like plant seeds or something like that. If you want to do that, I can give you some extra credit for doing, since you're at home for so long, something fun like that. Like one of my favorite things is to take just take a piece of cardboard, wet a paper towel, and you plant seeds. And you might have bean seeds at your house if your mom cooks like baked beans or something. But anyways, bean seeds are great for it because they're big and you can really see it. But you might be able to do it with like corn or something like that you have on hand, so you don't have to go spend money. And then you put saran wrap over it. All right, and then you can look in the book. It's in the book somewhere. You might put like some little holes, like with a pin or something in it, but I'm not sure about that part. But anyway, so then you put it around there, put it in the sunlight, and you make sure that stays wet and just moist, the paper towel, and you can watch the seed through the saran wrap sprout, and it'll grow out that plumule like we talked about that turns into the plant. It'll grow out the radicle like it turns into the roots, and then you can even plant it like in a little cup of dirt of some sort. So something like that, that would be fun to do. And there's other things. There's a lesson on making fudge and how that works somewhere in the book. So yeah, something like that. Just give your hand a little try at some of those things. And of course, go ahead and do section review 11.1 as well. Have a good day.